What's up? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Pushing the Pile. Kyle, we are 100 days away from the start of the NFL season. So every website in America that talks about football, I believe, is dropping something like 100 things to know 100 days from kickoff. And we're going to be going over 100 things to know. The one that's on CBS.com. Cody Benjamin wrote it. A lot of interesting stuff in there. We'll be going over that. But how you doing, buddy? How you been? Missed not being in the studio with you.
I'm good, man. But I like being in this studio because it makes me realize how close we are to football season because you and I are in here so often during the season. You mentioned it being 100 days till kickoff. This is an exciting time as somebody who's in the sports media because, you know, your games are coming. You know, things are going to happen. But as a player, I remember finding out that 100 days till kickoff was here. And I had so much anxiety during this part of the season because you start, you know, you get into the routine of going in and working out with your buddies in mesh shorts and a t-shirt, and you get to wear your bucket hat and you're running routes if you're a receiver, you're hitting bags if you're a lineman. It's feel good, fun stuff. You get jacked, you eat good, you play golf in the afternoon, and then they're like, hold on, don't get too comfortable because the season's coming. 100 days, exciting time. Let's get right into it, Mike.
Yeah, where was this? In that we went over like right after the season, how that was your road trip out West Coast for you. What was this time of the off season like? What was, you know, I guess it obviously probably depended on what year in the league you were, but like what was your mindset and what were you probably doing at this point in time?
Well, immediately after the season, I would drive to California with my buddy Colin. We'd get in the car after the exit meetings and we'd get there as quickly as possible. I'd spend about 4 or 5 days being an absolute bum, a savage, an animal, testing out all the dive bars, you know, riding my skateboard, all that stuff, and taking a lot of naps. And then as the off season progresses, obviously you want to get ready to be in shape for when you return to minicamp and those sorts of things. But then you get the break after minicamp, and it's essentially a month between the end of vet minicamp and training camp. And that's essentially where guys can level up or kind of fall back into a regression. And we would go to Montana as a family, and it would be both my brothers, my parents in Montana on the lake. And we had an awesome training center up there, training facility. And we would just get shredded and be in the cold, fresh water every day and get your mind right, get ready to go get in that spaceship in August or training camp, whenever, July 27th, whenever the hell it is. And you get ready to go play football. But you have to understand that you're going to be yearning for this free time when you get in the season. So enjoy it while you're there. Yeah,
I always look forward to, I haven't played in the NFL, but I've been working in the NFL for 13 years. I would always like look forward to the offseason, look forward to this point in time. And then when this point in time came around, I'd be like, damn, I kind of wish I was grinding again. I kind of wish I was putting in some 12-hour days again watching tape because it's just like it's not as much fun when you got when you're sitting on your hands.
A sailboat during the season, you're a sailboat in a storm, and your sails are almost getting ripped off the mast, and you know your mast is about to fail and fall into the water, and you're like, I can't wait till the wind stops, and then the wind stops in the off season. You're just sitting out of this big open blue, and you're like, when the hell am I going to get another storm? I want to ride again, brother.
Exactly. So we're going to try to ride again today. We're going to get through a bunch of storylines. First off the ball, though, Aaron Rodgers reportedly going to sign with the Steelers soon is the thought. But should he change his mind at the last minute? The plan B now reportedly is Kirk Cousins. They've already been in talks with the Atlanta Falcons. The report is that he would be the next option up. What do we think of this for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, I was listening to a brilliant TikTok by my buddy Frank Michael Smith. And if you don't follow him on all platforms, you should. He makes incredible short form videos, and he's a big Pittsburgh sports fan. He talked about the methodology that the Steelers utilized during this draft and not addressing their quarterback needs, and how all the arrows point to Aaron Rodgers being the next quarterback for the Steelers. I heard Aaron Rodgers at some sort of media tour saying he could go visit the Chicago Bears next year. Well, the Steelers have to go to Chicago next year. So that's another thing that's leading me to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy. I don't like the Kirk Cousins option. I just flat out don't. What we saw from him was not good enough last year in indoor football with great receivers and an offensive line. We didn't see him have that success. His arm strength wasn't there. His mobility wasn't all the way there at the beginning half of the season. Aaron Rodgers played good football last year. So if I'm going to pick between those two, it's Aaron Rodgers 7 days a week.
I'd almost even, I mean, not almost. I would rather have Mason Rudolph right now than Kirk Cousins. I'll just say it. I think this would be a terrible idea to give up any sort of draft capital to pay Kirk Cousins any sort of money whatsoever at this point in time. He's 36. He'll be 37 in August. His arm was too weak for a dome. His arm is not strong enough to play in the most
Pittsburgh's
demanding,
not tropical. Yeah.
Yes, it's the most demanding arm strength division in the NFL. You have 4 northern outdoor stadiums in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. And obviously in Pittsburgh, where it's one of, if not the most demanding in terms of arm strength stadium in the NFL. Everyone knows about the swirling winds and how much it affects the kickers there. Well, it also affects quarterbacks, and especially quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins, who, dude, if you watched him last year, it was just brutal. So maybe you expect a little bounce back from the Achilles, but it's not like Kirk was starting with, high-end arm talent that you can bounce back to. There's not really a bounce back to anything that's going to get me excited. So, yeah, I'm not – that is not the route I want to go down. You're praying. You're putting all your bag.
I really want it to be Aaron. I mean, it gives guys like TJ Watt the best opportunity to go on a run.
Yes.
It's good defense, front 7 football. They invest in the defensive front. They're going to play Pittsburgh defense again, allegedly. And if you can have somebody who can manage the football game and not necessarily be a game breaker, you can go and win some football games in that division.
I think so. I think Aaron wasn't bad last year. It really was. The offense was a goddamn disaster. Like, I don't want what's his face? Why am I blanking on the Jets OC who got fired midseason? His buddy, his boy.
Yep.
I don't want him anywhere near a play calling duty anytime soon. Let's get real.
That's how forgettable the offense was. We can't even.
Nathaniel Hackett. There you go.
He couldn't.
I don't want him anywhere near offense football anytime soon. But if Aaron Rodgers can get with, I'm not going to say Arthur Smith's a great offensive mind, but I think at least Arthur Smith's going to bring a little more to the table. I think they could be a much better offense than what we even saw last year in Pittsburgh. All right, the other bit of news here in the first off-ball segment. Tom Brady at the Indy 500 in a custom Brady 12 gets booed by the...
I'm going to say it. Tom Brady still got glutes. Okay. I hate that that's my takeaway from the booing video, but with that angle and that custom tailored TB12 racing suit, man, oh man, guy looks like he can still play. I might start eating asparagus and get all the seed oils out of my diet as well.
Dude, he's single man in his 40s. I mean, you see him all over
South Florida. They're everywhere.
South Florida, dude. They're teaming with guys like that. Where you're like, are they on the juice? Aren't they on the juice? They're on, there's a bunch of these testosterone therapy places down here for low T guys, but it's all guys who don't actually need it, who are basically just, it would surprise me if Brady's taking a little sauce to get back in the game, I
trained in Scottsdale one off season, and it was like the women that were 50 to 70 were on performance enhancing drugs. They all looked like they were 30 and 40. And then I moved to South Florida, and now the men have become the group of people that are, and Tom's just ahead of the curve in that regard. But I'll go back to the booing. Look, people don't forget. All right. People don't forget when you get that many people that are Colts fans in one building on one property, and Tom Brady's out there getting the nod from the PA guy. If you don't boo, I think you're doing it wrong.
It is sad that Peyton's career got cut short by injury. I mean, short relatively compared to Brady, obviously, because there was a point where that debate was raging. That debate to me was far more exciting because they were contemporaries. It was one of the few where it's comparing Brady to Mahomes, it's like two different eras of football still. It still is two different eras of football. Brady and Manning were at the exact same time or in the exact same.
It'd be like LeBron and MJ in the same years together. Yes. You could say, screw all the era conversations. Let's just put them tail at tail.
And I think until very recently, it was still a debate. Now, very, very recently being 2018 till now, when Brady won, 2 more after that. It was a real conversation. Now, obviously, just with as many rings as Brady has, I think it kind of fell by the wayside. But there was, like, in terms of just who you would rather have in a single season, a single game, there were legitimate conversations to be had. And obviously, like you said, Colts fans aren't forgetting about that. I know when my parents lived in southern Indiana for a while, the amount of kids that were named Peyton down there, outlandish. Just so many kids.
This is our lab named Manning. This is our,
Yeah. Exact same energy. He was the Colts, dude. He was.
Rest in peace, Jim Irsay as well. A legend, a unicorn, as it were.
He burned bright.
You listen to some of the testimonies of people that he's been around and been involved with in business or socially, and the stories about Jim Irsay are just infinite. And Pat McAfee's up there crying, talking about Jim Irsay. It's special stuff. Rest in peace to Jim Irsay. All too young.
R.I.P. Jim are very much too young. All right, there's our first off the ball segment. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to roll through this 100 things to know for the NFL season. So top storylines, going to talk about some new rules, some new head coaches, some key questions right after this. So the article online, CBSSports.com by Cody Benjamin, mentions these as the top storylines going into 2025. I'm going to read them off. You tell me which one you think is the most interesting to you. First one, are the Chiefs about to tumble? Second one, can the other AFC powers, Ravens, Bengals, Bills, get over the hump? What's the deal with Aaron Rodgers? That one's not interesting to me anymore. I think we all know it. Did you listen to Rodgers on Rogan, by the way?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. A
lot of, shall we say, medical talk.
Every hot topic that could have been covered. Joe Rogan juiced every ounce of conspiratorial discussion and cutting edge medical talk. My God. And Aaron is just like so ready to go about everything. He's like, "Oh, funny you should ask. I prepared like a 7-page document to discuss this with you."
It was like a conspiracy theory home run derby where they're just throwing up like softballs.
It was Sosa and McGuire just injecting each other and hitting bombs. I listened to it as an entertainment. It wasn't like I was listening to it for information, right? You listen to these things while you're making coffee in the morning, making breakfast, and it's funny. It's funny to listen to. Like, I'll turn to my wife and she'll be like, "Did he just say that?" I'm like, "Yes, he did. This is ridiculous. I'm going to keep listening."
It's incredible how deep down the experience, like, because there is a lot of things where they're not even like explaining. They don't even like give context. They're just kind of just like, "Oh yeah, about Moderna or whatever," and
they say one name and then it's like boom, 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 boom. Yes, I did see that. Right. Which leads me to, we were talking about the top storylines, and I'm going to just say I'm not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers again because we just did. But I think day in, day out, that is the story, because there is a Hall of Fame quarterback that's sitting on his couch or Joe Rogan's spaceship podcast studio who could quite literally take your team to the promised land if you make it happen. Miss the boat on the Vikings, or the Vikings miss the boat on him, depending on how JJ McCarthy looks. But the Steelers are the team where the ducks are in a row for Aaron Rodgers to hop in there late spring, early summer, and get things rolling. You also said, can the other AFC powers get over the hump? The Ravens, Bills, and Bengals. Mm-hmm. The hump, as it were, for all those teams are different. For the Ravens, it's the big game. It's the drop 2-point conversion. It's, turnovers in crunch time. For the Bengals, it's the defense. Are we going to be able to see the Bengals play any defense? Because if the Bengals play any defense, the Bengals will be in the playoffs, and the Bengals will be the team that nobody wants to play. And the hump for the Bills is the Chiefs. And I think that the hump has gotten smaller. The lump has gotten smaller. The Chiefs, they were embarrassed in the Super Bowl. Obviously, The offensive line has been minorly dismantled with Tooney going out the door, and now Trey Smith's on a $23 million deal. You got a lot of guys who are set to get paid. We're waiting to see how healthy the receiver room is. I'm never going to count Patrick Mahomes out, but you have to look at the people around him and what's happening. Are they able to protect him the same way that they have in years past? Are they able to play defense effectively? Are they able to stay healthy on the outside? I think this could be the year where we see somebody bust out, whether it's the Bengals or the Bills, in my opinion, and challenge the Chiefs for the AFC title.
Yeah, I think the first two storylines there that I said are like the same thing. Are the Chiefs about to tumble is the same as are the Ravens, Bills, or Bengals going to be on the come up? Because obviously the Chiefs have dominated the AFC over the past half decade, with only the Bengals, I believe, the last team to make it to the Super Bowl from the AFC. So I do think, it interests me because this year, more so than it seems like any other year, it seems prime for that, but also that there's no clear second team. There's no clear, like, someone's coming up to take the mantle from them. It really could be the Ravens. It could be the Bills. It could be the Bengals. It could be the Texans. It could be a lot of different teams in the AFC right now. It could be the Broncos in their own division, right? So I do think that uniquely on that side, I think the NFC is a little more clear-cut at the top. The AFC looks like very much a free-for-all at this point. So whoever gets over the hump, it's honestly going to feels like a crapshoot. I can't look at any single one of these teams and be like, yeah, they are extremely well positioned. I think of them all, the Ravens look like the most complete team, but obviously they didn't make the NFC Championship game last year. They've had their own struggles to win the big one. So the AFC, to me, if I'm looking at the two conferences, looks like the much more interesting one heading into this season. And the sort of games that will happen at the top to shake it out will be must-see TV down the stretch. All right, a couple more storylines. Any of these interest you? Can the Commanders live up to the hype? And how will the NFC North shake out? I think the Commanders won.
What does the hype mean? Do you want the Commanders to go to the NFC Championship again? Do you want them to make another Disney movie run? I mean, sure, that could happen. You better win all your close games like you did last year. You better find a way to play some defense on the back end.
That's how I think the Commanders one is almost too short-sighted. You have a window. Live up to the hype is more just like, you just establish yourself in that tier of teams that can win a Super Bowl, right?
Every year.
Exactly. That's all this season is just maintain an advance, like survive, like basically like
double-digit wins is really the barometer. Yes. If they can get to 10 wins, I'm like, they are who I thought they were. He is who I 100%. Thought he was.
You just want to be at that level that is, I'm in the playoffs every single year. Once you're there, once you are that, should injuries bounce your way, should player development go your way, should a few moves that you made, obviously some big ones, Deebo Samuel, Laramie Tunsil, pay off big dividends, you got this 3-year window. You got the next 3 years of Jayden Daniels' contract that are very cheap comparatively to the rest of the NFL. Once the 5th year hits, it's still not quite as expensive, but that's when it starts to get more difficult. Not to say you can't do it, just say that that's kind of your window, that you're on the holy grail right now, where it's the cheap quarterback rookie deal that you can just flood them with talent that they tried to do this offseason. You make big splash moves like the Laramie Tunsil trade. So it's not that it's this year we have to go farther than we did last year, which would obviously be a Super Bowl. It's just we got to be in the dance. And then if you're in the dance this year, and
just
you're
keep your RPMs high like they were last year. Yes. Just keep your RPMs high.
And
then the one that's the one that is most intriguing to me is the NFC North and how it's going to shake up.
That is
obviously you and I are both big fans of two NFC North teams, but I'm honestly I've got my eyes on this division because the Detroit Lions have been the juggernaut in the division. They lost both their coordinators. Jared Goff gets an opportunity to show us standing alone how he does. J.J. McCarthy's going to be inheriting a Ferrari in Minnesota. Can he even drive stick? Can he find the clutch pedal in that car? Is Ben Johnson going to get through in a short enough time to Caleb Williams to be able to get the football out of his damn hands so he's not taking a million hits a year and drives aren't ending on 3rd and 16? Obviously, the Packers, it comes down to what Jordan Love can do with that receiver room. Can they continue to build as a defense? Obviously they got some teeth last year. I have the least amount of questions about the Green Bay Packers, and I have a lot of questions about the other teams. How do you see the NFC North shaking out, particularly with the coaching changes and the quarterbacks who are trying to take their next steps?
That's a great way. I think you framed it very well in that there are some teams with big question marks. Like that you said you feel most comfortable about the Packers, but it's also like, in my opinion, I almost feel the least excited about the Packers because everyone else has something that's like could be insanely
teetering
good and like year on year could push them over the edge. Where it's like the Vikings have this wild card at quarterback in JJ McCarthy, who by one of my buddy Matthew Collar, Purple Insider, Vikings beat reporter, he said he looked better than Sam Darnold in training camp last year. He would not, would not blow smoke up JJ McCarthy's butt just unceremoniously. Like, he truly believed that during training camp he was the better quarterback and thought he was going to win the job before obviously the meniscus tear. So you have that guy, and if he is, shoot, that could get you to the Super Bowl with how good their defense should be, how much their offensive line has improved. Chicago, top to bottom, one of the best rosters in the NFL, loaded with weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and you have maybe the best offensive mind in the NFL. It's just, how is it all going to work out now? So they have that going in their favor. That, yeah, they were fourth in this division last year, but had the complete biggest upgrade of anyone in the NFL in terms of the coaching position. And
they
then
were in a lot of one-score games too. So, like, we can say the wins and losses, but it's also really important to point out how close some of these games were against playoff opponents.
Team last year. And then you have the Detroit Lions, who were the most injured team in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball last year. Now, they lost both coordinators, but talent still talks in the NFL. And if you're bringing back guys like Aiden Hutchinson, if he's back at full strength, if you're bringing McNeil back at full strength, if you have DJ Reed playing the way he did last year in the secondary, and you have Terrion Arnold, Anis Rakestraw, your first and second round pick from a year ago, making big steps in year two. Well, shoot, this could be one of the best. This could be a top 3 defense in the NFL very easily. So that's why I'm like, the Packers feel safe. They feel like a safe bet to make the playoffs. They don't feel like the team that's ultimately going to come out at the top of it. But I can't tell you who is, right? Like, gun to my head, I have no freaking clue who it's going to be. But I would just, if I had to bet right now, I would take the field over the Packers.
I'm really anxious to see how this thing shakes out, because obviously we're going to have our eyes on the NFC North.
All right, next bucket here. New rules. Which one of these new rules do you think will be the most impactful? And now there's no tush-push rule. That to me probably would have been the most impactful, but technically not a new rule. That it's continuing to be as is the past few years. Touchbacks will now result in the ball being placed at the 35-yard line as opposed to the 30. Let's just say touchbacks are like 3 points at this. Like, what are we doing here? Both teams are now guaranteed at least one possession in overtime. So the playoff rule, how it was implemented, is now in the regular season. Onside kicks can be attempted at any point during the game now, not only in the fourth quarter like it was previously.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're alerted, though, it's still, you got to.
We're going to do an onside kick.
Yeah, right. And then there's a virtual tracking system that will be used now for down and distances, with the traditional on-field crew still on hand if the original system, or if the primary system of virtual tracking fails.
This is a measurement system, correct? Not just hey, it's fourth down, check with the computer.
Correct. This is where the ball.
This is exciting. This is what we used to talk about as middle schoolers, when like we'd see the chain gang over there cramping up in August, September in Virginia. Sorry,
you didn't just say chain gang.
The measurement crew. The measurement crew. Yeah, sorry, I canceled chain gang last year. The measurement crew over there, and they're like cramping up. They can't do it. I'd be like, what if we just had a ball with a chip in it, or some sort of camera on the pylon, or a laser that goes across? Guys, we got it. Okay. So we've got a virtual tracking system that keeps track of downs and distances. We are in the future, boys and girls. Buckle up. Okay. This is the tip of the spear. This thing got slid under there, under the radar, and everybody's not even like freaking out about it. This is bigger than AI. Okay. If this kind of technology comes to football, this is just the leading edge of a much larger blade.
Yeah, I think the sport that to me has utilized technology, like the one I think of when I think of like this type of technology, the ball track, tennis. You watch a tennis match, they have the cameras, they know, you can challenge if a ball went in or if a ball went out. If you're that accurate, if that's the thing though with this technology, is it better be freaking 100% the way, pitch tracking is in baseball for the strike zone, or else people are going to be a little upset. People are going to get a little upset.
And with the tush push being a thing still, when's the computer going to say the ball's dead? You know what I'm saying? Like, yes. If you don't have clear vision, so is it cameras that are looking at downs and distances, or is there a chip in the football?
I believe it's a camera system.
So there's some holes in
both.
This.
So it's kind of like both. It has cameras plus
triangulation.
Something in football. Yes.
Okay, so there is something in the football because with the tush push, sometimes you think the play's over, the whistle's not blown, then the offensive lineman push guys. Next thing you know, you're 5 yards down the field. Will the computer say he was down there? Or will he say 5 yards? And then on the defensive side of the ball, if I tackle somebody, if I wrap somebody up, pick them up, and somebody tush pushes me 5 yards back with them, is it going to be 5 yard loss, or is it, this implementation's cool. I think it's really cool, but there's gray area because of some of the other rules that we decided on or didn't decide on that will make it tough to enforce some of this stuff.
So Sony's Hawkeye system has 6 8K cameras that will optically track the ball's position on the field. Now, I have not read exactly how they're going to implement sort of the whistle plus, like when is it down? When did the guy stop going?
Yeah. Does the Sony Hawkeye have hawk ears as well? Can I hear whistles?
We'll see. But that one to me is definitely the one that every single game, it seems like we're probably for the first half of the season, we'll be discussing, how it works. But if it works seamlessly, the conversation stops real quick. But if it doesn't work seamlessly, kind of like, remember when we had the PI reviews, when it was not seamless, when they're doing those reviews and you're like, why the hell aren't they overturned this? That was obviously PI, or why the hell did that overturned? That was not PI. That's when you're going to have a sort of news story that we're talking about all season long. But I would hope the NFL has tested this enough, and I think they have, to know that it's pretty accurate. All right, next bucket. New head coaches. Which one of these guys is going to have the best season? Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson. Jaguars and Liam Cohen. Raiders and Pete Carroll. Pats and Mike Vrabel. Saints and Kellen Moore. Jets and Aaron Glenn. Cowboys and Brian Schottenheimer. 7 new ones. Who comes out on top?
Well, you said pick one to have the best season. And the best is relative to how you were last year.
Yes, it is.
So I think that's really important to keep in mind. I'm not going to be talking about the Jets. I'm not going to be talking about the Cowboys. I'm not going to be talking about the Saints. If we see Trevor Lawrence get influenced by Liam Cohen in the way that I think he's going to be influenced, and the implementation of BTJ and Travis Hunter into that offense should be a lot of fun to watch. We could be seeing them have a great season. Mike Vrabel obviously is going to have success in New England. He is going to have success in New England. Do I think he'll have the best success out of this group? I don't know. But relative to where they were at, I'm going to be damn impressed. I think that Ben Johnson will have a massive impact in Chicago. Then again, we were just talking about it. How long is it going to take Caleb Williams to adhere to some of his principles offensively? Then the Las Vegas Raiders come up. And I think that this could be the biggest surprise out of this group because of the offensive mind in Chip Kelly, the youth movement. It's an oxymoron to say it's a youth movement with Pete Carroll, but his energy, his cultures are youthful. Guys take pride in going to work, and they have a ton of fun doing it. Talk to anybody who played for him in Seattle, at USC. They loved Pete Carroll. I think that Geno Smith was a huge win for the Raiders. Their offensive line's awesome. I think Colton Miller is a glass eater at the offensive tackle spot. And with that running game with Ashton Genty, they could dictate terms of how a lot of these football games go. And with their rush group, watch out.
Yeah, they're healthy. They seem to be healthy. That D-line, it's so talented. I just want to see them healthy. I think you hit the nail on the head. Those first four, Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, all I think are massive upgrades from previous regimes. All should turn things around very quickly. I just think if I had to pick one, the Patriots are just the best situated for a big-time turnaround. For how bad they were last year, obviously picking number 4 overall, to the division, which is not as difficult as the North, not as difficult where Ben Johnson is, not as difficult as the West where Pete Carroll is, and then just the influx of talent. I said it at one point this offseason. I think it's the most talent I've ever seen any team add in an offseason outside of the quarterback position. Obviously, like when you add a quarterback, that's different, but just like everywhere else, from their draft where they had a zillion picks to free agency where they had the most money of all time to give out, they just completely revamped this roster. It is not last year's Patriots. So new head coach, second-year QB, completely new roster. All those add up to what I think should be a massive turnaround. And then, oh, by the way, they have the easiest schedule of anyone on this list too. So that's why it feels like the easy one. But just any of those first 4 guys, I think if you're a fan of the Bears, fan of the Jags, fan of the Raiders, fan of the Patriots,
it's going to be a fun summer, man. You know, it's going to be a fun summer.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to some key questions. We're going to get to the Super Bowl favorites and the MVP candidates, going through those odds right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, key questions. Burning questions heading into the 2025 season. First one, who is Michael Penix Jr.? I'll start off with this. I have my notes from the scouting report that I did. I'll read you who I thought he was coming out, and then we'll talk about who he is in year 2. Pros, doesn't take sacks. He actually had only 31 career sacks on 1,759 dropbacks. That is an insanely low rate. So that's like 3 NFL seasons, basically, of dropbacks. He took 31 sacks, so like 10 sacks a season. That's Tom Brady, Peyton Manning-ish sort of numbers. Takes good chances down the football field. He's a gamer, plays winning football, plus arm, straight line speed, doesn't use lower half much, but makes up for it with quicker motion. Easy ball handling. Cons, not a playmaker outside the pocket. Accuracy can get spotty. Arm talent doesn't translate as well on the move. 24-year-old rookie, had 2 ACL tears in his right shoulder or his right knee, and then surgery on each shoulder. Slim frame that you worry about re-injury. Towed the line between relying on talent and giving them chances to make plays. Then last year down the stretch, I think you really saw the guy who's operates on time and doesn't take sacks. You still saw that guy who operates on NFL timing, which is so huge when translating college to pros. You saw a guy who's just completely unafraid to take chances down the football field. That is his biggest strength. That was what I loved with him at Washington, loved at Indiana. And then day 1 of the NFL, he comes out and is just slinging it. There is no hesitation, no fear in his game. And with the talent they have there around him in Atlanta, the sky really is the limit for this guy in this offense. I think it's going to could be a complete night and day, but we really don't know. It was still 3 games last year.
When I took a visit in 2012 to the Indianapolis Colts, Pep Hamilton was the offensive coordinator, and they had a quarterback by the name of Andrew Luck. The meeting went like this. I walked in the room. Pep Hamilton pointed to the whiteboard, and it was a big number 12. And he walked up and he circled it about 12 times. And then he made sure that I saw that was the most important thing in the meeting. And then we left the room and had lunch. Michael Penix is the guy that you have to circle. And you have to say, if we can't keep him upright, it's on us and our season's over. I take a look back at the Washington-Atlanta game last year where we saw Jaden Daniels pitted against Michael Penix Jr., and it was some of the most fun quarterbacking of different styles that you'll see in the NFL. And to your point of him being unafraid to make plays and being on time and in rhythm with the offense, that's what makes him so much fun to watch. So for the Atlanta Falcons, just continue to give him opportunities with big-time receivers of different archetypes. You talked about him having a big arm. The thing I love about Michael Penix, he's got a big arm. He can go down the field. He also layers the football. He uses intermediate routes. He uses the middle of the field. He uses outside the red line on deep balls. He can throw it anywhere. I love to watch him, not just because he's a lefty, but because of the fact that I root for a guy who has had so much physically that he's had to overcome. Yep. And they've got their guy there. The only, red flag there is, can he stay healthy? Can they keep him healthy?
All right, next one. Do the Bills have enough non-Josh Allen playmakers? They certainly added, in terms of just like sheer number, they have enough. Whether it's Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, Laviska Shenault in that receiver room. Obviously, at tight end, you got Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. At running back, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. Like they've gone the kitchen sink approach. They've gone quantity versus over quality at a lot of those positions. But I do still think there is potential for some quality. Like obviously, James Cook is a high-end running back in the NFL. I think Dalton Kincaid, when healthy this season, will establish himself as one of the best tight ends in the NFL. It is just the receiver position, in my opinion, where it's like, are those guys, when the chips are down, capable of winning on third downs? Or is it just going to have to be Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things? I don't know. I lean towards it being enough, though. I do. I actually have more questions about their defense than I do their offense.
I believe in it as well. I think that they are dangerous enough. There are enough non-Josh Allen playmakers on the team. You talked about not having real star power at the receiver position. I would argue that the star power is on the offensive line for the Buffalo Bills. And they do as good a job as any offense in the league of making third down a manageable or short situation, which plays right into the hands of Josh Allen, who has the ability to keep it on sweeps, powers, dives, or he can throw it. You want your best playmaker to have the opportunity to make the play on these big plays. Eagles do the tush push. That's their wild card. That's their joker card. And the Bills have that ability to do it with their offensive line. Aaron Cromer's group does a great job. And I think that feeds into the personality of Josh Allen, the confidence of going for it on third and fourth down in those short situations. But yeah, you're right. The only question is, do they have any real winners on third down, third and long situations? Or is Josh going to have to go Superman all the time? But those other guys you named, they're pretty darn good with Kincaid and Cook.
Yeah. All right. Carolina Panthers. Is Bryce Young set up that much better this season to get him to where he needs to go? Now, obviously,
T-Mac,
additions, T-Mac, Rico Dowdle. Because Jonathan Brooks, second round from a year ago, it's been reported that he's unlikely to play this season. Horrible start to his career, obviously. Came into the NFL with an ACL tear, tore his ACL yet again. Really praying for the best for him. But it truly is just T-Mac. I'm not, like, Rico Dowdle probably won't be pushing Chuba Hubbard for a ton of carries. He's not going to make a massive impact, in my opinion. It's just, is T-Mac the true number one that Bryce has needed? The reliable guy on the outside. I tend to think yes, but at the same time, it's still not like I look at the receiving core and I'm putting it anywhere near the top 10 receiving cores in the NFL. It still has its big warts. They still need to prove a lot in the NFL. But to me, it's more than good enough, and especially when you have an offensive line that's solid. This isn't an elite offensive line by any means, but it's probably somewhere in the 10 to 12 range. It's a good offensive line. It's not going to limit you if you are truly a franchise quarterback. So I think, yes, I think they've done enough. It's not spectacular, but if Bryce Young truly is as advertised, or as he was advertised coming to the NFL, I think he puts up the stats to match it this year.
Agreed. Let's move on to Chicago here. I think we can both agree T-Mac's a great addition in Carolina.
All right, can Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson work in tandem? That's a good one.
You know the movie where the bald guy teaches the guy from Top Gun how to play drums?
Oh, Whiplash.
Whiplash. This feels a little Whiplash-ish, okay? Because you've got this freakishly talented young man in Caleb Williams, and you've got this coach who's obviously a guy who is like, no, this is the way that it's going to happen. Like, not my tempo. Not my tempo! Okay. So if Caleb Williams can figure out the tempo for Ben Johnson, boy, oh boy, they will play a masterpiece. And let's hope that we don't get to that one scene where the coach puts forth the wrong music for the quarterback. Because you remember the scene where he's like, I put the wrong song in front of you, but you just played it like a madman. Let's hope we don't have to get to that point and those two can be same tempo, same tempo.
Or he's putting different plays, giving Caleb a different play than the rest of the O-line. That would be
No.
That's what it looked like actually what happened down the stretch last year.
Carl Williams, he said that happened all the time.
I think the most underrated aspect of this pairing that I'm very much looking forward to seeing is Caleb Williams can freaking run. And as much as we oogle and awe over his arm talent and what he can do as a thrower, he can be a weapon in the running game that really wasn't utilized as that as rookie year. Obviously, you don't want to get a guy killed right out the gate. But
he
Ben
had
Johnson,
to run out of necessity, not out of design.
Yes. Ben Johnson schemed and had a top 3 running game in the NFL with a statue at quarterback before this. No option runs, no add-ons. And we've said it since, the dawn of the read option when what's his face? The Rich Rodriguez invented it at wherever it was that he was coaching. That it gives you a number. It gives you one more number in the running game. It
West
takes
Virginia?
out one more gap. It was before West Virginia. That's how he got the West Virginia job. Rich Rod came up with the read option before. But he was the supposed originator of the read option run. But it gives an unblocked defender has to play a gap that basically doesn't exist. So you get a numbers advantage every single play in the running game. You had one of the best running games in the NFL without that numbers advantage in Detroit. You just look at the other best running games in the NFL, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Washington, like they have mobile quarterbacks. Buffalo,
they have that.
The best running games in the NFL nowadays. That is one of the biggest reasons and one of the biggest reasons why mobility is almost a prerequisite for a lot of high-end offenses is because of that, because it does so much for you in the running game that impacts the looks you get in the passing game. That's just so valuable that if you don't have that, you're falling behind. And that's why Ben Johnson goes to a place where he has a guy who can do that at a very high level that just wasn't utilized in that role. So I'm very excited to see that aspect of the offense because it's never existed in the Ben Johnson offense. We never got to see what he would do with a mobile quarterback, how he would incorporate into the running game. So I think that added, yes, I think it can work. Yes, I think it will work just because of that, because the running game will work there in Chicago. And once the running game's working, it just gets much easier to make the passing game work as well. All right, Houston Texans. Is this remade offensive line sturdy enough? By remade, I mean
Laken Tomlinson and
sink at this thing.
Cam Robinson.
As it stands right now, your probable starting lineup: Cam Robinson at left tackle, Titus Howard at left guard, Jarrett Patterson at center, Juice Scruggs at right guard, Blake Fisher at right tackle. But you also have Laken Tomlinson there at guard, Ed Ingram there at guard, Trent Brown there at tackle, and Ariante Ursary, your second rounder, there at tackle as well. So what they didn't make up in quality, they for sure went for in quantity. So they have a bunch of names. They have a bunch of dudes there that have played football, that can maybe play football for you, but is it good enough?
We're going to have to see because, as you said, all these guys have played football. The offensive line was a big reason as to why C.J. Stroud struggled so much in year 2. And clearly it was a priority in the building because they went and got all these guys. But Cam Robinson, is an NFL offensive lineman. Laken Tomlinson is an NFL offensive lineman. But these guys aren't absolute stars. It's not like they've got any star power. They need these guys first and foremost to stay healthy because you don't want to get to the second level of your offensive line, particularly early in the season. But C.J. Stroud's good enough, in my opinion, to make it happen with this group. I don't see it being a strength of their team, though.
Yes, I think I'm of the exact same opinion you are, that this is not going to go well. The offensive line is not going to be good. It is going to have to be made up for in the fact that, one, you're changing OCs from Bobby Slowick to Nick Haley, coming over from Los Angeles Rams. That's where your gains are going to have to be made. I thought Bobby did a poor job of dealing with their offensive line struggles and even exacerbated them at times. That if it's going to look better, it's going to come via scheme. It is not going to become via.
You got to help your guys out.
100%. And I think if Stroud trusts the scheme, you don't necessarily need to trust that talent. He's quick enough from the pocket that he can make it work. And I just don't think, though, getting over the hump in the AFC, this is enough. You don't have a good enough offensive line to get over the hump. I think it's going to be a playoff team. They're going to be very good. I am terrified of this team having to come from behind against someone like the Ravens, the Bills, the Chiefs come playoff time. I just don't think if people can pin their ears back against this front, I think they're in trouble. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. Can Trevor Lawrence live up to the hype? Can he maximize his potential with his new setup of Liam Cohen, of Brian Thomas Jr., of Travis Hunter? I mean, this one's crazy because, if
you have to, or else the story's drastically different for Trevor Lawrence.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. He will maximize his potential. It's just his potential may not have been as high as everyone thought it was. If he doesn't play well this year, that's just or plays just fine and isn't a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL. Well, then he's just not a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL because the pieces are there that he should be playing at that level if he really is that guy. So
I got him as my comeback player of the year recipient.
I hope he does because he's a fun quarterback to watch when he's humming. That game against the Chargers a couple of years ago in the playoffs, he slings it. I love watch quarterbacks who are just unafraid to just drop back, hit the back foot, and just throw. And Trevor Lawrence is one of those. So, all right, next question. Los Angeles Rams, can Matthew Stafford stay upright and healthy for a team with Super Bowl aspirations?
You got to think so. I mean, he's got a guy who can get the football too quickly on the outside there in Devontae Adams. Let's hope that he looks like himself. And any team that is led by Sean McVay, I have the utmost in confidence in offensively, even if they do have struggles at the offensive line position. Matt Stafford's a guy who's no stranger to taking lumps in the NFL, but getting the football out is something that Matt Stafford can do a great job of. I'm looking forward to watching him again. We're lucky to be able to watch Matt Stafford play, particularly in this system.
Yeah, fully healthy a year ago. Only missed one game the year prior. Obviously, 2022 was marred by injury. His last couple of years in Detroit marred by injury. Has had back issues over the course of his career. We said it, though. We've said it a few times. The offensive line there, we thought it was thin last year. It's even thinner this year. So it's not necessarily, to me, the question isn't can Matt Stafford stay upright. It's can the offensive line stay upright? Because if you lose as many people, if they lost 3 starters this year on their offensive line the way they did last year at points, it will be untenable. They will not be able to win the NFC West. So that's where and then that obviously would contribute to.
They're going to have to get really creative, unlike Slowick and Houston. They're going to have to get really, really, really creative to be able to make things work if the offensive line doesn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Next question. What does J.J. McCarthy have in him? Should I read J.J.'s Scotty report coming out? Let's do this. All right, pros. Elite pocket movement, fearless under duress. He's a flamethrower, can hit any window he wants. Baseball pitcher-esque motion. Can play with anticipation with some amazing throws. Very accurate on the move. Has won every stop of the way. Cons. One-speed thrower. Layering question marks. Missed underneath defenders on crossers numerous times. Likes to force the first read. That's when he attacks tight windows most. He overstrides on far hash throws, making his accuracy iffy. Underneath accuracy isn't elite. Won't take speed off the throws. Doesn't adjust arm angles from a pocket and doesn't want to give up on plays when there's nothing there. I don't know.
Well,
I think it'll be fine.
We're going to get the most out of him.
I think it's just going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be elite. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he'll just be fine in that offense.
Bo Nix
from last year. I think that's a potential Bo Nix-ish, where it's just he can operate enough that you are
take care of the football, make some throws. I
think that's a fair projection, given what I saw from J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. given he's had a year now to prepare under the offense. I think that's what we could see. All right, Jets. Can Aaron Glenn stabilize the culture in New York?
Yes, I'm sure it's already happened. I'm sure that he showed up and they're like, thank God there's a parent here now, because of all the things that have happened in New York. I don't know how any of this equates to success, but I'll tell you that first thing you need to do is sterilize the building. And I'm sure that Aaron Glenn's done that.
The thing is, like, Robert Saleh was a culture guy too, though. It's to me, it's more
But
than
then
that.
he got out of there and culture fell apart.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yes. Second half of last season was a joke. Well, post firing just last season, I guess that was week 4. So I think second 3 quarters of last season was a joke.
Yep.
But I think it's going to take more than that. Like, I think they'll be a more competitive team because of that. But you still need more, and obviously more being weapons on the outside and the quarterback. You still need a quarterback that can, like, go toe-to-toe with some of the best in the NFL. And let's say, I just don't think they have it right now. All right, last one here. 49ers. Can they stay healthy?
This is the big question, man. Christian McCaffrey, dude. If Christian McCaffrey isn't healthy, this offense looks so different. The offense just looks so different. They use him in so many different ways to get things done in the passing game, in the running game, in the screen game. And when Kyle Shanahan's got that chess piece on his board, he is as dangerous as any coordinator in football, as any head coach in football. But without him, you start to have to rely on these other guys for singles and doubles. And quite frankly, they just ain't him.
Yeah, I don't think they can. You have, just given how the roster is constructed, right? It's so many. You're completely reliant on, not completely, but like when you have stars and scrubs, Christian McCaffrey, who has had a gargantuan injury history at this point, back to his time at Carolina, to his time now last year with San Francisco. George Kittle, 31, similar issues of guy has a long injury history. He doesn't turn it off when he's on the football field. He can't play at half speed to protect himself, so he misses a few games every year. Trent Williams is 36, and he had a massive injury history over his time at Washington. He was a guy who would miss time seemingly every single season. Brandon Ayuk's coming off a torn ACL. You can't rely on him to be the guy he was before. And Nick Bosa, obviously, he hasn't had the cursed injury history that his brother has, but he had an injury dating back to his time at Ohio State. He came out his last season having barely played as a junior via injury. So, like, you don't have clean bill of health guys, unfortunately, that you're reliant upon. Yeah, maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle and get it for a good portion of time, but I don't think that this team, as it's currently constructed, is one I'd bet on to stay healthy. I just wouldn't. All right, let's get to some Super Bowl favorites, some MVP candidates, which numbers we like the best at the top of this. Run through the odds now of the top Super Bowl contenders. The Eagles are your front runners at plus 650. Buffalo Bills at plus 750. Ravens plus 750. Chiefs at plus 800. Lions plus 1,000. Rams plus 1,800. Commanders plus 2,000. Bengals plus 2,000. Packers plus 2,100. And the Chargers at plus 2,500. Who we like in the most of those numbers?
So this morning at like 6 a.m., I wrote in the Eagles just because they are the odds-on favorite. But I have had a feeling throughout the course of this show today that it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens at plus 750. I could totally see this being the year.
They are, like I said, they're the most complete roster. If you just go through unit by unit, there's nowhere where you're pointing to and being like, that could cost them Super Bowl. That could lose them a playoff game, right? Like, every unit's good enough to get into the dance. And that's obviously why they've been so successful, won so many games over the past 2 seasons, but unfortunately haven't gotten over the hump. I do think they are well situated. If I'm betting, though, it's still a low number to bet. And the AFC's dogfight. I like the Commanders at plus 2,000.
That's crazy.
We saw Jaden Daniels as a rookie already look like the way he looked, right? And that was a rookie year. Rarely in NFL history has a guy peaked as a rookie. Like, there is probably a next step in the tank. And the next step in the tank could just be because, well, they added some talent to the offensive side of the ball as well. They added Deebo Samuel. They added Laramie Tunsil. Like, it could be the best offense in the NFL, run away from it, given the talent that's in that building. And I think defensively it should be much better, too, with all the additions they had in free agency and via the draft. So, all expected, I like that team at plus 2,000. Obviously, when you're on the doorstep a year ago, when you're one of the 4 best teams and you're on the outside looking in terms of the 4 best odds, I'm going to like your chances. I like some down-the-board plays, though. I'm going to pump the Bucs tires all offseason. I think this is a fantastic football team. They're at plus 3,500 right now.
Wow.
That's one of my favorite bets. And the Broncos at plus 4,000 as well. Anytime you could tell me you got a dominant unit, like a unit that goes into every single week and says, we are going to kick your ass with this unit. That is the Broncos secondary right now. And almost the Broncos defensive line, right? Like, the Broncos defensive line is outstanding, but their secondary is the best secondary in the NFL. Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, Jahdae Barron, Brandon Jones, Talanoa Hufanga. This is going to be a very difficult team to pass against. So, they already were last year. So when you have that, and then again, similar argument with Commanders, quarterback going into year 2, it will get better. He will be better. They have more weapons to run now. They still have a great offensive line that brings everyone back. I don't know. I think plus 4,000 is very long odds for a team that was like all signs point to arrows going up, right? For both those teams, the Bucs and the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos Bucs, that would be fun, and the number for the Bucs is astronomical considering where we had their win totals at last week. Yeah. And you also had Todd Bowles as the coach of the year, I believe. So that could be
I'm all on the
Bucs. That could be something to look for, people out there. So I've got obviously I picked the Ravens, but we're going to the MVP odds here, right?
MVP odds. Last segment.
So I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. I am going to be picking Joe Burrow to win the MVP because I stood on the table just through the wall here in the studio at the end of last fall, and I said, I know that he's not going to the dance, but he should still be the prom king. He should still win the MVP. That's Joe Burrow. I thought he was the best quarterback in football last year, and not to take anything away from the other guys that were in contention for the MVP award. But Joe Burrow is the guy, and we're going to see that this year. Al Golden's going to have the defense playing a little bit better, I would imagine, and the offense is going to be who they are, which is damn good, which is best in show. MVP, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, if the Bengals had the 15th ranked defense last year, and it's crazy to say, he probably wins the MVP, right? Like, he's probably your MVP award winner right now. And the odds are Lamar Jackson plus 550, Josh Allen plus 550 as well. No surprise there. You're 1 and 2 from a year ago. Joe Burrow plus 650, Patrick Mahomes at plus 700, Jane Daniels at plus 750. I'm right there with you with Joe Burrow. We picked him last week. I do just think that it's all set up for if this team just bounces back, makes the playoffs. Like I said, I think they're trying to give them to guys. Mahomes has his, Lamar has his, now Josh has his. You're going to spread it around to that tier 1 of quarterbacks in the NFL. So if Burrow's in the mix, I think you'd have a lot of voters lean Burrow if it's close. Some down-the-board guys, though, that if you want to take like a long shot, Michael Penix at plus 6,600. That's a long shot. I can't believe how low those odds are, though, for the second-year breakout quarterback.
Where's Caleb Williams on here?
Caleb Williams is plus 2,500, I believe, so a lot less of a long shot. But the same number as C.J. Stroud, and I like C.J. Stroud a little bit more if I'm betting the two of those guys. I like Baker at plus 3,000.
Love Baker at plus 3,000.
If the Bucs are who I think they are going to be this year, which is a very good team who plays the easiest schedule of the top contenders in the NFC. So they could end up your 1 seed with 13 wins. Baker could put up, 40 touchdowns, 4,500 yards again, the way he did last year. And it's like, if he has those numbers on a number 1 seed, you'll see some deference and some votes start to go his way. So for a long shot, plus 3,000, I like that. And also Matt Stafford, plus 5,000. A guy who could be a career achievement sort of MVP award given to him if he really is in the mix there. And with Devontae, with Puka, and if the offensive line stays healthy, he could put up these kind of numbers to get in that mix. So those are some of my favorite bets. But if I had to pick who wins it, I'm right there with you, Joe Burrow.
Joe B.
All right. There's your $150 things to know, go check out the article on cbssports.com. We will be back tomorrow going through 32 teams, going through the most important player on all 32 teams, who we want to see the most make an impact this upcoming season. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in. Keep pushing.
Thanks, guys.